You got cans of paint at home and you don't know what to do with them, or some household chemicals and you're not sure how to properly dispose of them. Let's find out in this edition of WJTS-Inform. Joining me in the studio is Carla Striegle-Winner. She is the manager for the Dubois County Solid Waste District. Carla, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You know, I think everybody, someplace in a corner in their shed or in their garage, they've got some old paint, or under their kitchen, they may have some old cleaning chemicals, or out in the shed or in their gardening area, they've got some old pesticides. Right. And the reason we still have them is because we're not sure of how to dispose of them. I think years ago we didn't care. It just kind of all got thrown in the trash and was taken to a trash recycling area, not a recycling area because they didn't exist back then, but to the landfill, and they were dumped. We don't want to do that anymore because we want it to be properly disposed of. But some things you can throw away. So let's start first of all about the good things that you can throw away. How, you know, if you have paint, what paint can you throw away and what should you do?
So, so the main thing to remember is with our paints, and we get so much paint out at the Solid Waste District Process Center, and we do accept any of the old household chemicals, pesticides, paints for small user fees. So that's where you can take it. You can bring it to us. Now, we don't necessarily want you to bring everything to us. We get so much paint. It's very difficult for us to deal with it. So there are some things that you can do if you have latex paint that you can safely dry that out at home.
Okay, now this may be a dumb question first.
Yes.
How do you know if it's latex or if it's oil?
Actually, that's a really good question. So I've got just a small, and this one's a dried can. It says latex on it. Okay, so some of them will say latex on it. Some of them will say acrylic. The easiest way, although it's getting a little bit harder because they tend to get the cleanup stuff smaller and smaller all the time.
Harder to read.
But the easiest thing is to, and this is what we do when we're sorting at our facility, because we have to sort the latex from the oil-based paints, is the easiest thing is to look at the cleanup, and if it says cleanup with soap and water, you're dealing with a latex-based paint. If it says cleanup with mineral spirits, you're dealing with an oil-based paint.
Okay.
So, or stain or whatever. So this one, if I were to read this teeny tiny little text on the back where it talks about cleanup, it says cleanup with soap and water. Okay.
Okay.
And then also, this one is a polyurethane varnish, and a lot of these are also going to say combustible. So a lot of your oil-based are going to say that they're combustible or flammable, but then also when you're looking at cleanup or when you're looking at thinning, it's going to tell you to thin it with mineral spirits or something like that. It's not going to say anything about using soap and water. Okay. So that's kind of how you can tell the difference with what you have. You know, I think most people would realize your varnishes and your stains are oil-based because you know most people know that those are going to be cleaned up with mineral spirits or that sort of thing. Or
so if you have to use a chemical to clean the chemical, you know.
Exactly, exactly. Then that's oil-based. So we do not recommend with oil-based paints, stains, varnishes that you try to dry those out at home. We don't want any liquids like this going into the regular trash. That's why everybody still is storing tons of it at home because I don't think I'm supposed to put this in the trash, but what am I supposed to do with it? So what we really, really want people to do is try to use it up. Try not to have so much of it in the first place. Don't overbuy. Don't impulse buy because it looks cool and then it sits on your shelf for 2 years because these things are combustible. So you really don't want them, especially the oil-based ones, sitting around the house that much. If you have a fire in your house, you're going to have a worse fire when it starts hitting stuff like this. Okay. So the first thing to do is try not to buy as much of it. Try to use it up. You know, use it up on something outside that, you know, isn't necessarily going to be seen or something like that so that you can use that up. So that's the first thing we want people to try to do. So you can't use it up yourself. Maybe a neighbor can, you know. It's been sitting there for 20 years and you're like, this stuff is no good. It's starting to rust. That's when you want to start thinking about the solid waste district and bringing it out to the solid waste district. We are going to charge a small user fee for each item that you bring. So normally anything smaller than a gallon, we charge $1 an item for.
Okay.
So if you have an entire gallon of oil-based paint and it's only got this much in it, all right, that gallon's going to cost you $2 regardless of how much is in there.
Okay.
So if you have a bunch of small cans and they're all oil-based, don't mix latex with oil, but if they're all oil-based, you can pour all of those into 1 gallon container. We don't want anything any bigger than a gallon container.
Okay.
But you can pour all of those into 1 gallon container, then we're going to charge you $2 for that entire gallon container. It's easier for us because we're not dealing with all these small things and all your user fees, and it's easier on you because you're getting by just a little bit cheaper and you're still doing the right thing.
Right, there you go.
So,
Now, while we're on that subject,
Yeah.
how do you dispose? What happens
right.
with these
so
chemicals?
one reason that I really like to encourage people to reuse stuff and not buy as much stuff in the first place is even though you are properly disposing of these items, they're not getting recycled. All right, now we do have a small amount of items. If they come in, we might put them out for reuse. But for the most part, all of the paints and stains that are coming in are going to a commercial incinerator, and they're being incinerated.
Okay.
So it's not the greatest thing in the world.
Right.
But this type of stuff is not the type of stuff they want in a landfill because there could be issues of that in the future if there would be a leak in the landfill, that getting into the groundwater, and you don't want that kind of stuff. So for right now, the commercial incineration, it's got scrubbers to keep a lot of the chemicals from going out of that incinerator, and so that's what's being done. So it's really, using less is a much better option, or reusing the stuff, giving it to a neighbor and having them use it is a much better option than bringing it to us if it's still in good shape.
And if you're at home and you're thinking, I got this one little can, it's not going to hurt if I throw that away. You're one person with one small can, but you think of in Dubois County, if everybody's got one small can, that's
Exactly.
a lot.
Exactly.
So that's why you need to dispose of it properly.
And with these oil-based paints, they are combustible. So throwing away that can, if it touches something else, if it, if there's a spark or something, it's possible that it could be a danger to the driver of any of the trucks or at the landfill.
So they should call your office to say, hey, when you open, I'd like to bring some paint out.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Now, what if it is latex?
Right, yeah, so with the latex-based paints, and again, we do take those, again, for a smaller container, it's $1 for a smaller container, $2 for a gallon container. Same thing applies if you've got 4 gallons of latex paint and they're all only about this full. You can fill 1 container completely up, bring that to us. It's going to cost $2 per gallon container. But with latex paint, you can actually dry that at home yourself. And an absolutely wonderful way to do that is kitty litter. And so this is actually a gallon of latex paint that was about half full. And the resident, and this was done by a local resident, put about that much kitty litter in it, stirred it, and within a couple of days, that is absolutely solid and dry. You do not want to use the fancy kitty litter. What you want to use is the cheap stuff.
Sure.
The cheap stuff, and this is also the same thing as oil sorb, any of your clay base. So if you have that, for your garage floor, if you have a little bit of an oil leak or something, and you spread that on your garage floor, it's the exact same thing as really cheap kitty litter, and it's just a clay base. You could also use sawdust. You could even try shredded paper. The main thing is it starts pulling the moisture out of that can or out of that paint. You don't want to do it to a full can because it's going to expand.
Okay.
So you're going to want to be careful with that. But you can dry that out at home. And then this is completely safe. Once it's completely dry and solid, you can put that in with your regular trash.
So you could just throw that away, latex paint,
just like this.
Like trash.
Yep.
But
just
dry
like
it out
this,
first.
as long as it's absolutely dry. You cannot do that with oil-based paint. And the kitty litter option doesn't really work very well with the oil-based paint. But for any latex-based paint, you can do that. And again, try to use what you have.
Another way, use it again.
Right, yeah, give
Sure.
it to a neighbor. Find a charity that maybe needs to paint a room. That won't be paint that they had to buy in their budget if they're able to use paint that you've given them. So try to use it up. Try not to overbuy or impulse buy on paints. And then, but dry it out at home or bring it to us.
You also have a can of spray paint.
I do. Yeah. So spray paint cans, and this goes for any type of aerosol can, but since we're talking mainly about paint today, spray paint cans, we will accept those for a small user fee of $1 a can. These, if they're, usually your spray paints, if they've been frozen, you know, a lot of people think, oh, it's bad. You'll be surprised, a lot of your spray paints usually are oil-based and they are still good. But if it's just something you don't want anymore, or you know it's old, or it's not spraying, you bring it to us. We can properly dispose of these as well. And again, $1 a can is our user fee. What I usually tell people, if it's completely empty, these just go into regular trash. We can't really recycle. At this time, we can't recycle the metal because it still has a little bit of pressure in it, and it's not safe to recycle that. We can go into regular trash. If it still has stuff in it, though, it's really better just to bring it to us.
Because again, we don't want that chemical.
Of it. Yeah, and the chemical, and also, you know, it is a slight explosive hazard to have these setting around as well. So, yeah.
What about insecticides or pesticides?
Right.
That people would have at home that they want to dispose of?
Yeah, at the process center, we do accept really any household or residential amounts of that type of thing. We have small user fees. It really just kind of depends on the size of the container. We usually don't tell people the exact amount, but that just goes back into our budget because those things are so expensive to properly dispose of, especially the pesticides. So pesticides sometimes between $1 and $3 a container, just kind of depending. But yeah, that's definitely the type of stuff that you want to get into us. You don't really want that setting around for a child to accidentally get into. For, you know, we've had people bring DDT in. How long has DDT been banned?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, somebody's got it in their garage. Well, you don't really want that setting around. You really want to bring it into us so we can properly dispose of that. And we work with a company that comes and picks all of that stuff up and is able to take care of that.
Because one of the points, again, is we don't want this going in a landfill where it can seep out.
Yes.
Or if you just throw it away out in your backyard, it seeps into the ground.
Into the groundwater.
That's the whole point.
You don't want that. Yeah.
Okay, so if it's latex paint, dry it out with using kitty litter, or let the can dry itself if there's very little in it.
Yeah.
And then you can just throw that away.
As long as it's completely dry.
But if it's oil-based or a spray paint can that's got a little bit in it yet, that needs to be properly disposed of, or chemicals, and those they should bring to the solid waste. But try sharing it first.
That's right.
It might be even better.
If it's still good, reuse it and send it to a neighbor to use or something like that if you can't do it yourself. Yep.
All right, Carla, thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks, Bill.
So I hope you've learned something about proper disposal of paint and other chemicals. This has been WJTS Inform. Our guest is the manager of Dubois County Solid Waste. That is Carla Striegle-Winner. You can call her if you have some questions about what can and cannot be recycled or what you should do with some items. Thank you for watching WJTS. We're local people watching local people.